Can Iran really hit the United States mainland? A stunning threat from a senior Iranian cleric closely tied to the country's leadership is now raising that very question. During Friday prayers in Ahvaz on August 7th, senior Iranian cleric Abdolnabi Mousavifard claimed Iran is preparing to dramatically extend the range of its missiles, although Iran's military has not publicly unveiled a 15,000-kilometer weapon or confirmed such a program. Mousavifard, who serves as the representative of Iran's supreme leader in the province, made the explosive remarks while addressing worshippers, saying, in comments carried by Iranian media, that Iran is preparing so that the American people also experience missile strikes and understand what it means to be, in his words, dragged through blood and dust. The number he attached to that ambition, 15,000 kilometers, a range that, if Iran could actually develop and deploy it, would put much of the continental United States within reach. He noted that Iranian missiles can already reach Israel, roughly 2,000 kilometers away, before leading chants of revenge and calling for the destruction of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Words from a pulpit, not a launch pad, but words that Washington cannot afford to ignore. And that is exactly the point. Because behind the rhetoric sits a very real arsenal, built for exactly this kind of confrontation. Iran entered the recent wars with one of the Middle East's largest and most diverse missile forces. U.S. Central Command estimated in 2022 that Iran possessed more than 3,000 ballistic missiles, a figure that predates the enormous expenditure of the current war. And missiles are not a side program for Tehran. They sit at the very heart of its military doctrine, as the country's most important strategic deterrent against a far more powerful United States and its regional allies. That is the logic the West often refuses to say out loud. A nation that cannot match American aircraft carriers or stealth bombers builds the one thing that makes attacking it expensive. And Iran has spent decades making that deterrent survivable. Over the years, Tehran has built what it calls missile cities, vast underground military facilities carved into mountains and designed to protect missile systems from enemy strikes. Iran has publicly displayed these complexes in carefully staged reveals, associated with systems like the Shahab-3, Sejil, and Khorramshahr families, with reported ranges reaching around 2,000 kilometers, showcases designed as much for Washington's eyes as for Iranian television. The message of those tunnels is the same as the message from Ahvaz. You may strike first, but you will not strike everything. But Iran's ambitions may stretch far beyond that. Iran's missile program has long-standing technological links to North Korea, while Chinese origin technology and components have also influenced parts of its broader missile development. U.S. Treasury reporting has documented Iranian missile technicians working in North Korea on an 80-ton rocket booster project, a window into decades of cooperation between the two capitals. North Korea went on to demonstrate intercontinental missile technology capable of threatening the United States, and the question now haunting Western analysts is how much of that roadmap Pyongyang is willing to share. If direct transfers of modern North Korean ICBM hardware to Iran ever surface, that would mark an extraordinary escalation of this entire confrontation. So let us be precise, because this is where the headlines and the evidence part ways. There is currently no confirmed evidence that Iran possesses an operational nuclear weapon or a proven intercontinental ballistic missile capable of reaching the American mainland. That distinction is critical. Iran may be talking about what it wants to develop, but that does not mean the capability exists today. And notice something else. It is a cleric making this promise, not a general unveiling a missile. Tehran knows the gap between ambition and arsenal. So does Washington. What the declaration does is publicly advertise a future capability Washington has long considered possible if Iran eventually chooses to pursue an ICBM, and in the arithmetic of deterrence, doubt is a weapon of its own. Meanwhile, on the ground, Iran is rebuilding, and what it is building is telling. after its air defenses suffered devastating losses during the fighting that began in late February, with Israeli and later U.S. military officials estimating that roughly 80% of Iran's air defense network had been destroyed or struck. Tehran is flashing a new warning with a mix of homegrown systems. Iran claims its domestically produced Arman system can detect dozens of targets at roughly 180 kilometers, engage threats at up to 120 kilometers, and deploy in around 3 minutes. Alongside it, the Azarakhsh system, meaning lightning, is mounted on a 4x4 vehicle, carries 4 ready-to-fire infrared-guided missiles, and is built to hunt drones, cruise missiles, and helicopters at low altitude. Iranian officials say these are cheaper and more efficient alternatives to expensive foreign systems, and IRNA reported the new additions would significantly strengthen the air defense network. On the defensive side, the picture is radars, interceptors, and mobile point defense systems. Separately, Iran continues rebuilding its offensive ballistic missile inventory, which includes Fateh, the ballistic missile Tehran describes as its first domestically produced hypersonic weapon, with a reported range of 1,400 kilometers. And the rebuilding may extend far beyond domestic production. Reports suggest Iran is seeking hundreds of Chinese and Russian MANPADS, and the paper trail is stacking up. Reuters reports a contract for between 300 and 400 Chinese QW-12 and FN-16 MANPADS, with initial deliveries planned through Pakistan, although both China and Pakistan deny the reported arrangement. Separate Kurdish sources claim several hundred Russian Verba systems have already reached Iran, a claim still running ahead of the evidence, while the stronger documented trail is a Financial Times report of a Russian contract for 500 launchers and 2,500 missiles, with most deliveries scheduled for later. Opposition sources have also mapped claimed deployments across several strategic regions of the country. Analysts caution that MANPADS alone cannot overturn U.S. air superiority and would likely become early targets for American intelligence. Their greatest value would be against low-flying aircraft, helicopters, and drones, adding another mobile layer of threat to the skies American pilots must cross. Step back, and the shape of this story is clearer than the headline suggests. A cleric promises 15,000 kilometers. The confirmed picture is more modest and more interesting. A historically enormous missile arsenal, hardened underground infrastructure, and a rapid effort to rebuild damaged air defenses. None of it points to an imminent strike on the American mainland. All of it points to a country building layer after layer of cost around itself, so that every future attack on Iran carries a higher price than the last. That is not the behavior of a state preparing to conquer. It is the behavior of a state that has been bombed for months and intends never to be defenseless again. So, can Iran hit the American mainland today? There is no confirmed evidence that it can. But if Tehran genuinely succeeds in developing a 15,000-kilometer capability, the strategic equation would change dramatically, because the one thing that has always made this war feel safe in Washington is distance. And distance, Tehran is telling the world, is a problem it is working on. The world is watching, and so far, neither side is blinking. Subscribe to WLA for daily geopolitical analysis.